Shalom, Chag Sameach. There's an undeniable connection between the festival of Sukkot, its mitzvot, and the Temple Mount. For the last 2,000 years, we've celebrated Sukkot without the temple, and we've been worse off for it. When we compare the observance of Judaism in a temple-less world, we find a difference that requires explanation. When discussing the mitzvah of lulav, we read, the mitzvah of taking the lulav is obligatory in every place during every century, and it applies only from the Torah on the first day of the festival. It is only on the Temple Mount, in the way the mitzvah was originally instituted, that the lulav is taken on all 7 days of the festival. When the temple was destroyed, the sages ordained that the lulav be taken everywhere for the entire 7 days of the festival, excluding Shabbat, as a remembrance of the temple. This enactment, like other enactments instituted by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai when the temple was destroyed some 2,000 years ago, is only temporary. When the temple is rebuilt, these matters will return to their original status. Similarly, when discussing the destruction of the temple, we find the following. After the temple was destroyed, the sages of that generation ordained that one should never build a building whose walls are decorated with ornate designs like the palaces of kings. Instead, one should cover the walls of one's home with mortar and paint over them with lime, leaving a space 1 cubit opposite the doorway that is opposite. They similarly ordained that a person who sets a table for guests should serve slightly less than usual and should leave a place empty, so that it obviously lacks one of the dishes that would ordinarily be placed there. When a woman has a set of jewelry made for her, she should refrain from having one of the pieces appropriate for that jewelry for the set being made, so that her jewelry isn't perfect. Similarly, when a groom marries, he should place ashes on his forehead on the place of his tefillin. All of these practices were instituted to recall Jerusalem, as King David states, if I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand be forgotten. Let my tongue cleave to my palate if I do not remember you, if I do not recall Jerusalem during my greatest joy. In a post-temple world, we find rabbinic laws set up to remember the temple and mourning practices to recall Jerusalem. What is the differences between the sages' enactment that the lulav be taken everywhere for the entire 7 days of the festival, as a remembrance of the temple, and the mourning practices that were instituted to recall Jerusalem? Maimonides wrote that there are 13 fundamental principles of faith in Judaism. The 12th of those principles is that there will be a messianic era, and that we must believe and confirm that the Messiah will come, not to think that the Messiah is late. As we say, if the Messiah tarries, wait for him, but do not give a set time when the Messiah must come. Without a temple, our people are lacking in our ability to lead our lives in the most optimal way. How do we respond? Well, in 2 different ways. The first is to remember Jerusalem by practicing some of the mitzvot that can only really be done with the temple, so that when the temple is rebuilt, we step right back into practice. Second, by instituting practices of mourning that help us yearn for a temple and a rebuilt Jerusalem. Practice without mourning would be inappropriate, and mourning without practice would be depressing. It is only by combining both of these approaches that we can hope to temporarily practice in both a post and pre-temple world. It's an incredible lesson for Sukkot, and one that I hope we take in our lives daily, remembering what the temple will be like and how ideally we should practice our mitzvot and relate to God. Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.